Hey teachers, this is Mr. Harry from Harry Kindergarten Music, and today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite secret signals. So why use secret signals? Believe it or not, teachers have been known to do a lot of talking. We give directions, we give academic instruction, we redirect, and by about mid-morning, students are just plain tired of hearing us talk so much. In a way, students become numb to hearing me speak constantly. It almost reminds me, do you know that teacher from the Peanuts comic? Wah, 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 right? So that's kind of how kids hear us throughout the day. So basically, secret signals are a way to use a nonverbal cue to get students to do a certain direction in my classroom. This is without me having to say a word. Now, secret signals are not necessarily sign language. I don't have a whole lot of real, actual sign language that I know. So I'm going to be sharing with you a number of nonverbal cues that I basically just made up. In fact, in some cases, the students themselves made up the signal for me. So if you watch this video and think these signals are a great idea, but you want to try a different signal instead of mine, go ahead. Just kind of do what works for you. But I'm going to share with you the signals that have worked for me throughout the course of a school year. Now, I think it's important to note that I'm not introducing all of these secret signals at once. By the end of the year, I'm going to have about 10 to 15 secret signals, but at the beginning of the year, I'll only have a few. I'll scaffold these kind of throughout the year. We're going to practice these signals a lot during the school year, and the more we practice, the better we get, which is kind of what I tell the kids anyways. On the first day of the school year, I'm always going to teach two specific signals that I think will help me right away with following directions. So my first secret signal of the year, this is the one I literally do on like kindergarten orientation day with students at the carpet, is to quietly touch my nose. And this just means sit on your bottom. So if we were standing, now we sit down crisscross applesauce, hands in lap. Now, sometimes we are already sitting down and I catch a student who might be laying on their stomach or sitting with their legs out touching another student or something like that. In this case, touching my nose is just going to mean figure out how you're sitting improperly and please sit crisscross applesauce. I'll also use this signal a lot at our hallway bathroom breaks. I'll see a student sitting against the wall. That's kind of like where we go when we're done with our bathroom break. They're sitting against the wall, and when they're finished with the bathroom, maybe they have their legs stretched out where they could accidentally trip someone who's walking down the hall. So a simple touch of my nose, and when they see that, they know to bring those legs in and sit crisscross applesauce. I also love to use this secret signal at school assemblies. So imagine that moment when you are at a school-wide assembly and you don't necessarily have immediate access to your kids because they're sitting far away from you. You're feeling a little bit helpless. They're down the line watching the firefighters give their presentation, right? And if I see a student who's up on their knees or sitting improperly, I will literally take my laser pointer with me and I'll kind of try to secretly shine my red laser pointer light right at that student's feet without anyone else kind of noticing it. And then once I have their attention, I'll just quietly touch my nose. And I would say this works every time without interrupting the presentation. Now, my second secret signal every year is kind of the counterpart to touching my nose. If I do arm circles with both of my arms, this means stand up. So you can imagine how this would play out on the first day of school. Having kids practice standing up, sitting down, standing up, sitting down. And now for them, they think it's a game, of course. For me, for you, for teachers, we know it's classroom management boot camp, so to speak, on the first day of school. And the fact that students are kind of giggling and playing, having fun with it, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down, is a great sign of engagement. And I'll use these two secret signals in conjunction with each other the whole rest of the school year. Okay, so here's another secret signal, swiping across my cheek with my hand. This signal means just calm down, or self-control, or figure out whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing that you're not doing right now and do it, right? Kids in my class mostly know this signal as self-control. That's kind of what they say. But it really just means figure out what annoying thing that you're doing that is off task and get back on task. So this is one that I love to use when I'm at my kidney table, running small group reading instruction, and all the other students in my class might be working independently, doing centers elsewhere in the classroom. And you know it's inevitable that given enough unmonitored or unstructured free time, you doing centers, for example, kids are bound to get off task or get silly at the classroom library or mess around with their friends doing a puzzle. etc. So this is another time I'm going to get out my red laser pointer, and without my small group students kind of knowing it, I'm literally pointing that laser at the feet of those kids in centers and immediately following up with swiping my cheek, that secret signal. So that just means figure out what off-task thing you're doing and calm down. This is probably my number one secret signal that helps me not have to constantly yell at my students or raise my voice too much. People that walk by my room would typically say, I don't hear you raise your voice that much, and this helps. Let's check out another secret signal, touching my elbow. So this simply means shut the door. Now, on my assigned seating chart at the carpet, I will always have 2 specific students assigned to door duty who sit on either side of the carpet. That's because I've got 2 doors in my classroom on either side. So if one of these 2 students catches me giving the touch my elbow signal, they know to just walk over and quietly shut the door. All right, another signal you can use. When I am in the hallway walking with students in a line somewhere, if I repeatedly tap the top of my head, this means please fill in the line gap. Now, I know you know this situation. You're walking down the hall, you've got your first few kids following along right in line, and then that 4th student is already on planet Jupiter. They're looking the other way. There's this gigantic gap in front of them. Does this sound familiar? So if I give that student the tap my head signal, this does not necessarily mean run to catch up. It means walk briskly. So I'm going to have to explicitly teach students what it means to walk briskly and to catch up to the rest of the line. The funny thing with this one is that, like, the student who isn't paying attention doesn't see me sometimes. If they don't see me right away, you better believe that the other 90% of the rest of the kids they will see me, and they're going to start smacking their heads too until the student figures out what is going on. So it's always nice to have your other students kind of help you out with secret signals as well. Let's check out another signal. If I start pulling the bottom of one of my ears in front of a student, that means figure it out yourself or figure it out independently. Now, here's what it does not mean. If I pull that ear, it does not mean, come on, why don't you know how to do that? This signal is not meant for me to demean one of my students or to belittle them in front of class. It's just a subtle way to have that student stop, think about what they're doing or not doing, and problem solve independently. Because, isn't that kind of what we want teachers, we want students to do as teachers anyway, right? Part of our job as good educators isn't to do everything for our students, but instead is to give students the tools to figure out things on their own so they don't need us to do it for them. So I'll give you the perfect example. I'm in the middle of instruction and Johnny's over to the side discovering a dust bunny or random, blue crayon or a eraser or a wrapper from snack time on the floor or something like that. Johnny's gut reaction is to immediately interrupt my instruction, blurt out something like, Mr. Harry, what should I do with this? Or even start messing around with that dust bunny or crayon or whatever it is. My response is that I'm going to quickly pull my ear so Johnny can see it, and he knows that he needs to figure out what to do independently because we know Johnny actually does know that random trash found on the ground goes in the trash can. We know that Johnny knows where the community crayon bin. We know he can do it on his own, but we have to empower him to do it by himself and not enable him to always have me do it for him. So this is definitely another moment in my classroom where I have found other students in the class doing my secret signals to that clueless student until they kind of figure it out on their own. Okay, next secret signal is motioning my glasses back and forth. Now, I have glasses, you might not. Obviously, if you don't have glasses, you're going to have to improvise on this one, make the secret signal what you want it to be. This is my secret signal that means it's almost time to clean up. So, for example, I know that after my students arrive at 8:45 at our school, the school bell is going to ring at 9:10 to start morning announcements on the loudspeaker. So I want my students to know a little bit in advance that it isn't quite cleanup time, but get ready because that time is fast approaching. And students in my class know that if they have a particularly large amount of stuff on their desk that they're going to take a little bit longer with, they can actually start to clean up early. And they also know that if the bell's about to ring, I'm not going to be coming around to check any of their papers any longer, and they can stick it in my tray so I can check it later. So that moving of my glasses back and forth real quick is preparing the students for the next slot in our daily schedule without having to panic or get into the I don't want to clean up argument. You guys know that argument? When the school bell rings or when it's time to go to the next center or whatever that transition may be. All right, let's check out another. So if I'm in the hallway with students and I tap the hallway wall, this means my class is going to do what I call a hall step. For example, if I'm at the end of a bathroom break like I mentioned earlier, and I have my students lined up against the hallway, after they stand up for us to go back to our classroom, I'm going to tap the wall, and students step over one step so they're ready for walking closer to the middle of the hall. That's just called a hall step, and they know to do it as soon as I tap that hallway wall. Now, another tap I might do is inside of my classroom, tapping the classroom wall. This tap on the wall would happen at a moment where my students are already sitting at their desks. They could be in the middle of working or already had their heads down quietly. Whatever the case, when I tap the wall in my classroom, students are going to quietly stand up, push in their chair, and then stand quietly behind their chair waiting for instructions. Of course, this is going to take a lot of practice before students do this routine automatically. I should really say that for all of these secret signals are going to take a whole lot of practice before they become automatic. All right, here's my next secret signal, flapping my shirt. So if I flap the chest part of my shirt, this means sing it, don't shout it. Now, this is a signal I'll use often during song time, which is kind of like a specific subject time during my day is song time. I do want to clarify that flapping my shirt does not mean be quiet, right? I don't want them to be totally quiet. If we're doing song time, I want all students engaged and singing with me. And this signal means bring your volume down a little bit. I don't want to stunt my students' excitement and vigor for singing. It just means sing it, don't shout it. I also love to use this secret signal during our morning Pledge of Allegiance. Don't you tend to just always have that student who is like, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And again, I don't want my students to not say the Pledge of Allegiance or to not be respectful to the flag or our country. Flapping the shirt is just a matter of having them say it and not shout it. All right, my secret signal list is almost over, guys. I saved the best for last. My last signal I'd like to share with you is when I tap my knee. Now, you will all relate with this one. If I tap one of my knees to a student, this one means, Johnny, I know you are really not feeling well. I know that you've got that boo-boo from recess time. I fully acknowledge the incredible pain you were going through with that 1/4 of a millimeter cut on your pinky. But Johnny, no, you are not going to the nurse. I mean, this is like probably one of the most annoying things I do as a teacher, fielding questions and comments all day long related to students wanting to go to the nurse or students having a seemingly fatal injury that we as teachers know is not a big deal. So tapping my knee is just, it basically means, hey bud, I see what happened there, I acknowledge it, but I think you'll be okay. And I think you'll make it till you get married, as teachers like to say. All right, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this installment of Teacher Tips with Harry Kindergarten. I can't wait to see what secret signal you might use in your classroom this upcoming school year. Good luck.